A few days ago, I posted a poll to my community page asking a question because I had been feeling the urge to window manager hop. So I listed a few window managers that I would like to try and really just kind of get some community feedback to see what you guys would like to see most. And it seemed pretty well split between Qtile and Awesome. But I'm going to give you a spoiler here and now. My plan is actually to have a look at both of these window managers, but it will take some time to get acclimated to a new window manager and for me to gather enough coherent thoughts on each one to make a somewhat educational video about it. But moving on down the list, down toward the bottom, the last choice was shut up and make a Vim video or something. So since I've already been messing around with this config and have some prior experience with this one, here goes. In today's video, I want to talk about my Vim config and how much it has changed over the last few months. When I first switched from Nano to Vim, I didn't make any changes at all. And I just learned to live with the defaults. But using vanilla Vim, in my opinion, is really only marginally better than other terminal-based text editors. So it goes without saying that it wasn't long after that I found that I could set stuff permanently in my vimrc. And that first version of my vimrc was literally set number, syntax on. That's it. But as I started using Vim for editing text files more and more, the more settings I was finding useful and the more my vimrc grew. And recently I have been looking at other people's vimrcs and playing around with Neovim and a few different plugins. And once my Vim/Neovim actually started looking really cool, I decided it was time to make a video about it. Now with that said, I am not a programmer. So this is not going to be a tutorial of any sort. This is simply a showcase of what I have configured for myself. So I have navigated to my .config directory in the nvim folder, and I just typed in vim or nvim init.vim. So first and foremost, I wanted to set a leader key. So you see, set map leader. I have that set to space. So if you don't know what that is, imagine a leader key similar to a modifier key like in a tiling window manager. And if you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, you know I love a tiling window manager, and you know what a mod key is. So if you're new to Vim, your leader key is essentially a mod key. Now the next couple of items is pretty subjective. Most people don't want to have the title show up, but I kind of like it. Also, I like to have the path set to search recursively, so it's not just surface level searching if I'm using that feature at all. Now the next thing is set no compatible. I'm a little torn about this one. I have set it and unset it, and pretty much everything that I've read seems to point to setting it as no compatible, so it doesn't interfere with other cool Vim stuff that you can set later on. Now in the next section is where I have my spacing set. So you see I have my tab stop set to 4, soft tab stop set to 4, shift width set to 4. Mainly just so everything lines up better and my tabs aren't just ridiculously long. And I have set expand tab to pretty much convert tabs to spaces, which is kind of handy, but kind of not in certain cases when you're editing a script that relies on tabs, like Xmenu, for example. When I showed that off in a previous video, and I think I even linked to DistroTube's video on Xmenu if somebody had not seen that. That particular script relies on tabs and not spaces. So for me to edit that, I had to turn this feature off. So anyway, now set smart indent. I like to have smart indent enabled, so it will at least attempt to indent my spaghetti scripts properly without me having to intervene. Now the next two things here, also super duper subjective. A few people are probably not going to like this, but I like to show the mode that I'm in. You know, if I'm in visual mode or if I'm in normal mode, insert mode, whatever, I like to show that. And Also, I like to show the command that I'm running, be it either a split or calling up a terminal, something like that, which is really the only two things I do. The next thing is just the file type plugin. I have that turned on, and I have the syntax turned on. So the next things I have set is set number and set relative number. And all that's going to give you is this right here. It gives you line numbers. And the relative number will actually count out away from the cursor line in both directions and tell you whatever line you want to jump to is this many lines away. So if I'm in normal mode here and I'm in set number, and let's say I want to go down to set mouse equals A. So all I got to do is say, look at the number next to it. So 16J. That's pretty great, right? If I want to go back up, 16K. And I'm back where I was. That's kind of great. That's one reason why I like relative numbers. Now the next thing I have set is set no wrap. And as you can tell, most every setting that I have in here is super duper subjective. You may like this, you may not like this, but I have my line set to not wrap. Because if I'm editing a file or whatever, I don't want it to wrap to the next line and possibly confuse me. So I have just everything set to no. I have it set to not wrap, and it will just go on and on and on and on. Sorry, it'll just go on and on and on and on forever, until I hit the enter key, of course. Now the next ones are pretty great. I love these settings. Highly recommend these settings for everybody. I have set ignore case, smart case, and ink search. These are probably some of my favorite settings in the whole config. Because when you're searching for a particular word, let's say you type slash and you're looking for whatever, it will search for it without case sensitivity. So let's say, for example, I'm in normal mode here, and I go to the top. Let's say I want to look up the word plugin. It'll match on this one. And it also matched on the capital. Now also, ink search. If you notice, when I first typed capital P, it dropped straight to plugins because that was the only thing that had a capital P in the whole config. It found it right away. That's what ink search does. If I can get away with not typing as much, that's what I'm going to do. Now this next setting, scroll off equals 8. Some people are going to know what this is, some people are not. But what this is going to do, it's easier just to show you. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to arrow down. And you see, it started scrolling the page before I ever got to the bottom. And it actually started scrolling when I was 8 lines from the bottom. And also 8 lines before I got to the top. So you can set this to whatever. You can set it to 2, you can set it to 20, it doesn't matter. That's the number of lines your cursor's gonna be away from the bottom or the top of the window before the document starts scrolling. I found this to be pretty great, and 8 is about where I want it to be. Now encoding equals UTF-8. I think all encoding on my computer is set to UTF-8, so for some reason, if it's not, now it is. No HL search. I really like this feature because when it's not set, when you highlight stuff for a search, it stays highlighted unless you have this setting. So when I search for something, so let me just search for plugins again. All right, you see that's highlighted. It turns all that stuff off. And it doesn't stay highlighted once I go into insert mode. Thank goodness. That annoyed the crap out of me. Now also, I have mouse set to A. So when you have set mouse equals A, that means in any mode that you're in, you can scroll with the mouse. I rarely ever use this feature unless I'm actually showing something in Vim in video. So this is really just for video. Also, clipboard plus set to unnamed plus. This right here actually makes Vim use, or Neovim in my case, use the system clipboard instead of its own Vim register. And I know some Vim purist is probably going to run across this video, eventually, and leave a comment saying, "Oh, Vim registers are really useful, and if you would just take the time to learn to use Vim properly, you would know that. Well, I've got a secret for you, imaginary person I just made up. I don't care. When I need to paste something into a file that I'm editing, it's not coming from a Vim register. It's coming from another file, or it's coming from the web so I can test something out. So, yeah. Now, the next two things in the config are the newest additions that I'm trying out. That's the spell checker and completion. Now, the jury's still out when it comes to the completion thing because I'm really not used to boxes popping up on every word that I type. And it's kind of off-putting a little bit for me, but I'm slowly getting used to it, and I'm finding it to be a little bit useful. But it's kind of strange. So let's say set. You see, I can hit enter and go to the end of it. So you saw me typing there, and you saw the boxes popping up. I wrote it's pretty great here because I was kind of in love with that idea, but in practice, I'm kind of falling out of love with that idea. I may keep it, I may not, who knows. Now, here's where we get to the fun stuff, the plugins. I'm using Vim Plug mainly because it's really freaking easy. You go to the website, you run the script, and there you go. It's super easy. Now, the first two plugins are mainly just for me. You may not like this color scheme that you're currently seeing right now, but I really, really do. And what that's giving me is hybrid.vim and Vim Airline. Because, well, I think this looks really, really nice. The next one is just File Manager Incorporation, and if I'm using Neovim or Vim, VIFM seems like a pretty much a no-brainer file manager to use in Vim. So that's what I'm using. So moving on down the list, I have several plugins here for syntax highlighting. And if I'm editing a file, let's say it's a Python script, or if I set up SXHKD. Sorry, I had to slow down for that one. It's really bad name. It's a really bad name. SimpleX hotkey daemon. That's better. Or if I'm editing an i3 config, or if I'm changing something a little bit in Rust because I know nothing about Rust, or JavaScript, or that's really about it. Now the next plugin is super duper cool because Vim CSS Color. It is really nice to have for web developers and window manager writers alike because it will actually give you a preview of what color you're putting into a file by highlighting the hex value in that specific color. I know that sentence was weird, so bear with me and I'll show you. I'm going to get out of this file. I'm going to cd into home/.local/source/dwm, and I'm going to vim config.h. These right here. You see the little blocks around the hex values here for my colors? That's what colors that are being used for my window manager. That's what the Vim CSS plugin does. I think that's cool. I think that is super cool. Let me get back to the init.vim file. Vim Surround is a really cool plugin from T-Pope, but since I don't really get to use my computer every day, it's taking me some time to get used to and memorize the key combinations for surrounding text that you've already typed. Or if you're editing a file or something like that and you need to, let's say you want to put T-Pope in quotation marks, something like that, there's a key combination you can do that without adding a quotation and then moving over to the end of the word or into the sentence or the line or paragraph, whatever, and then adding another quotation mark or bracket, curly brace, whatever. That's super duper cool. There's some videos about that. If I can remember to do it, I'll link to some in the video description. But that one is really, really cool. I need some time to figure it out. Now, the Vim scripts autocomplete pop, which is pretty much the pop-up windows that you saw popping up earlier. And I mean, it's kind of nice, but like I said, the jury's kind of still out whether I'm going to keep it or not. Now, after all the plugins and stuff, I just set my color scheme to hybrid, and then I just set how my splits behave. And honestly, I have them set to be the exact opposite of what they are by default. So if I set up a split, it shows up below or shows up to the right instead of above or to the left. Because why? I'd rather have it to the right. That's just me. Now, the last status, I have that set because I always want to show the status line. Now, when I'm getting to the remaps, I actually stole these first few from DistroTube, from his dot files, because they are super useful and I really like this. So I have remapped split navigation to control plus the Vim keys, HJKL, instead of control W, HJKL. I just took the W out because that's just weird for me. I'd rather just do control HJKL. So here's an example. I'm going to hit :VS. Gives me a vertical split. I can hit control H and L to change that. That's really all that does. And if I had a horizontal split, I can use J and K to go up and down. That's really about it. Now, if I wanted to adjust these, I can hit control and the arrow keys, and it will, depending on what is the active window, and it adjusts by 3 columns or rows at a time. Now here, I have set a vertical split to show up when I hit leader TT and open the terminal. So space TT, and now I have a terminal. Go into insert mode, and I can CD back home, clear the screen, sudo apt update, and it works just fine. Or most of the time when I open up a terminal, it's really just to make a directory or something like that, because when I'm editing a file, I'm focused on that usually, and then I'll have that thought, oh, I forgot to make a directory for something, so I open up a terminal and handle it from there. Or I open up VIFM and just create one from there too, either one. But anyway, to exit out of this, you're still in the Vim buffer, so you can actually go into insert mode, go out of it, but you can just type exit. But you got to hit enter or another key or whatever to close that part out. Now, these other two I also stole from DistroTube. Thanks, Derek. It's to change the split windows from a vertical to a horizontal. So let's say I did a vertical split. And let's say I did space TK or space TH. That's super useful for me too. I really like that. Now the next one is probably my most used remap in all of this, because I just remapped double I to escape. That is fantastic because you're not reaching all the way up to hit escape. You can just double tap I rather, and you're escaped back into normal mode. So let's say if I hit I and oops, I didn't mean to do that. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I, and you to undo. And my hands never reached up to touch the escape key. That was great. Now this next one, you need to actually have the file written. So if I hit :W, it's not going to give me an error now. So if I actually type something in here, and then you to undo, if I do leader VS, hit enter, actually it worked. It wasn't working earlier, but now it is. Of course it's gonna work when I'm recording when it wasn't working earlier, or if it was working earlier and I'm recording, it's not gonna work. That's just how it goes. But anyway, now you see I'm in VIFM. But to get out, :Q, and I'm back where I was. Now, this is the last thing, I promise. I know this is really dry content, and I apologize. I can't make it all exciting. But anyway, the last thing I have set is to just remove trailing white space when you save the file. So that's actually an auto command, buff write pre, and all that's going to do is just delete everything all the white space from the ends of all the lines when you write the file out. So that's about all I've got for today. I just really wanted to show my Vim/Neovim config and kind of give you guys some ideas of what's possible to put in your config. Or you may already be a Vim master, which I most definitely am not. But either way, I hope you saw something in here that you could possibly put in your config or make it a little better. Or if you know something that I could add to mine to make it better, I would love to know. So let me know in the comments what your favorite plugins and remaps are. So with all that said, if you made it this far in the video, you are truly awesome and your attention span is that of legend. So anyway, y'all have a nice day. Like, share, and subscribe.